that other mic like a 360 mic?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly, actually.
Because that's what I was thinking of. Whoa.
Yeah, you're just hearing because I've got to turn off the monitor now. But monitor off. We're not monitoring you anymore. We're not monitoring me anymore. There we go. There is no monitoring going on at all here. I mean,
Goodness.
pass me my phone so I can actually.
You want your coffee too?
Well, yeah, and my shake. You know,
I've passed them all.
Hey, just keep passing stuff. So, all right, I'm good. Are you
All
good?
right. Yeah,
I know you're waiting on me. So
it's okay.
all right. Well,
Don't
here
spill
we go.
your coffee.
Yeah. Well, welcome back to Conflict of Leadership Coffee Table Edition. I am Tim.
I'm Jeremiah.
And we're back after another hiatus. I mean, if we do have any regular listeners, there is no rhyme or reason at all to what or how we're doing.
And we just go with the flow.
You know, we did talk about this at the very beginning that we don't want this to be to run our lives or anything. We're doing this for fun. We're not doing this for any monetary gain or anything. So.
Yeah. You know, it's getting summer where we're at. It's getting nicer out too. So. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you spend all your day in the boat.
Yeah.
I've spent part of my afternoon after it stopped raining in the garden and doing that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's what we do. You're good. I'm going to make a quick adjustment for mine while we're...
Yeah, nothing like spending the day in the boat.
Even though you're burnt all to hell.
This is from work. This is from just sitting yesterday.
That's right, you guys are out there sitting like back cats on your back patio.
Pretty much.
Back drive, just
watching the cows run in the pasture.
I wish I had that kind of time.
It's boring.
I mean, I guess in all fairness.
Trust me, I'd much rather be out there running calls than sitting like that. Mm-hmm. I get antsy.
Antsy Nancy?
Yes, like I need something to do.
There we go. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, yeah, no, I mean, I don't mind sitting by, watching traffic go by, but I agree. I like to have at least something to do.
Yeah. I mean, 6 hours and no calls for our whole station, and
that makes for
rough.
Makes for a long day, especially if you have nothing else to do except for like busy work or anything like that.
Yeah. At one point, I looked down at my watch. I was like, I've only been here for 2.5 hours. And it felt like I've been there for like 5.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief, it's not just full of lazy firemen and whatnot. So we actually do enjoy doing things every once in a while. So, but you can only wash a truck so many times before you're like, okay, I'm over this. It's time to do something else.
Tomorrow it's wax day.
Oof.
Hey, that's what I got the polisher for.
Trying to make life easy on yourself.
Absolutely.
You're one of those millennials.
Work smarter, not harder. Thank you. Well, RB.
You know what? That almost plays in a little bit tonight because tonight we're talking about balancing needs and requirements for equipment and knowledge. So apparently you're finding a new balance for your equipment to doing your job.
Yeah, well, I originally bought it for the boat. Let me tell you what, that was so much nicer to do it with a machine than all by hand. So
yeah, no, there are some things like waxing vehicles that I get doing it by hand. It can be done. It's cheaper, but just why? Why? We have in the days of Harbor Freight, we have affordable, inexpensive things to do it much easier. We don't need to. We don't need to be doing always by hand, even just for the quote unquote building of what was that called?
Building character.
Character, yes, building character.
Be out there, you know, Daniel's son, wax on, wax off.
I think that's the only drawback to those orbital things is they don't really do the wax off part very well. Do the wax on.
Yes, the wax on, the wax off is all by hand.
Yes. No, I mean, but then again, too, you also think about how many things in the fire service and EMS. You know, we are lovers of our technology and we are lovers of our gadgets.
Oh, 100% agreed.
It's like, especially after FDIC time or the Jackson Fire Expo, guys are always coming back. It's like, oh, I got this new thing for self-rescue, or I got this new tool that's going to make the Halligan obsolete, or oh, we learned a new way to use wedges and so much better than what we were doing before. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like never ending.
No, it really is. Somebody's always coming up with something new every day. And whether it works or not, no until you try them.
Mm-hmm.
It's trial and error.
Well, I think it's funny, like we've finally been doing this long enough where we're starting to see full circle and some of the tactics from 15 years ago start to come back around and be taught again, except they're being taught like they're brand new. Like we've
never seen this before.
Like, look at history, folks. This is...
Yeah, like my full-time job, there's a guy that just went through a 36-hour class,
mm-hmm.
and I've actually been teaching him some stuff while at work too, because he's like, well, my instructor said this. I'm like, well, this is how I was taught it 14 and a half years ago. He's like, wow, that's different.
Yeah,
well, like, it works though.
It does. Well, and the thing is that this is what I start finding is this, not necessarily whether one thing is better than the other, but every situation requires a different approach, and you need to have them all as your ability to do things, not just a one and done.
Oh, absolutely. Like I've learned, was it probably 10 years ago, a new method of opening up the hood of a car. You can't get the hood open, circular saw. Make a V cut where the latch is, take your Halligan, pull it back. I was like, man, I like it.
Well, there was a training we did a couple years ago. We had some of our new cadets on, and we were doing at our local scrapyard, we were doing extrication training. So the new cadets took all the actual tools, the spreads and cutters. So me and one of the other guys, we decided we're gonna try something. We took the reciprocating saw, and we were about 2/3 of the way through cutting around the actual latching mechanism of the back door of this vehicle to get in. And about the same amount of time that it took for them to pop the front door and stuff. So it's, it's just options available for you.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
Knowing how to use the stuff.
Yeah, like there's that tool out there. I can't remember the name of it, but it's easier than using a reciprocating saw to cut the windshields open.
Are you you're not talking
they're
about
like metal? They're like tin shears, metal shears.
I was good because I was thinking the windshield saw, the one that's specifically made for that. But
yeah, I'll have to show you a video of it later, but it's pretty nifty.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing is that at the end of the day, I don't have anything against different technology, different gadgets, whatnot. Bring them all to the table, but realize the limitations of each of them. Because if you don't have the head knowledge to make it work, it doesn't matter how cool it looks on TikTok or YouTube or whatever.
Like, especially that you just made a good point. Like people that have airbags. That rarely uses them, and they're not efficient in them. It's time to use them. It's like, oh, okay, how do we do this? How do we do it like this way? You don't use them enough. You're not proficient enough. You gotta, like I said, you have to have the head knowledge.
Well, I think so I'm about to do the forcible entry training here in full-time department, and the thing I put in there is I break it down to using just a Halligan and a flathead. Not because I don't think any other tools are necessary, although I do say in my class that, hey, you don't need any other tools, but because you can watch any TikTok video, any 6-second short, where somebody shows you, oh, this is the new way to to use this. Oh, hey, you can marry the tools in this way, or you can. My issue I have with that is when you practice on the same door every time, you begin to learn its nuances. You begin to learn where its weak points are, and so you know how to manipulate your tools to almost guarantee every single time that you will pop that door with no problem, which then takes that little hack that you came up with, makes it completely moot, because in the real world, not all doors are built the same.
No, they're not. I mean, you got wood doors, you got metal doors, you got solid steel doors. There's everything. Like in commercial buildings, you got fireproof doors too. And they're magnetically closed when the fire alarms go off.
Yeah, and I mean, those are designed too, so that they're supposed to be on the backup power system. So if you lose power, which, fire, you probably will lose power, they're supposed to stay closed to to allow for, or they're supposed to deactivate so that they stay closed. But then we take it on the other side too, because you bring up that, and you get into an almost decision paralysis type thing, where it's like you're looking at all the different types of doors, and I've seen it hanging in our bathrooms, like, what kind of door do you have? You have this, a hollow core glue-on door is an actual full thickness door? Do you have miter joints, or do you have a mortise joint for your
Mm-hmm.
locking mechanism? Is a key and at the end of the day, I don't care what it is. Just break the damn lock. Get
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Just get in.
Yeah. But we get so deep into like analyzing every single little bit of it, and it's like, and then we end up going deep down this rabbit hole. We
Mm-hmm.
have all this information. At the end of the day, it's like, can we just force some doors? Can we just
Yeah.
practice breaking shit? Because
or even before you force the door.
Mhm.
Big thing when I was in fire school, I'm sure for you too, to try before you pry.
Yeah.
Make sure the door's unlocked.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to bust the door down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like when you start looking at every single element, and you've named quote unquote the anatomy of the door and whatnot, you forget the simplest stuff. You
Mhm.
forget the
You
simplest ways
get
of doing things.
blinders on.
Yeah.
You know, you're focusing on other stuff,
hmm
and so you forget the basics.
So where do you think that lies there? There's a balance in that, with like having all the tools and equipment, and it's really awesome. But then having the knowledge, like, is there a balance, or is one side better than the other, or?
I think there has to be a balance between the both.
Mhm.
But ultimately, one for different situations, one's going to work better than the other.
Mhm.
It just depends on your situation. It really does. Like, you can have the latest and greatest tools, cutters and spreaders, you know, but it can be simple as just taking a Halligan and popping that door open.
Yeah.
It's simple as that.
Yeah. I sit on the other side of that. You should have the head knowledge, but you should have the why head knowledge, because like I kind of akin it to paramedic school. In paramedic school, you learn all kinds of stuff that falls into kind of the useless category when it's all said and done. Why do we need to know the 12 cranial nerves of the face? Why do we need to know all of the nuances of your hyperthyroid and hypothyroid syndromes? Because at the end of the day, you're going to treat the patient the exact same way.
Right.
Now, if you give me a reason that why we care about those things and why we should, yeah, then I'll side with you on that. But I mean, just not just having knowledge, but having knowledge with a purpose.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you can compare that to being a mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I need to know about this? But you tell me why I need to know about this because of this, and this. Then it's all coming together.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. No, I can think of a lot of different scenarios, but the best one I came up with is like, so when we teach our fire patterns, we teach our T's, our Z's, and our O's for fire attack patterns. I mean, we kind of hit it, and we talk about, thermal layering and all that. But until someone really like breaks down either in video, or hey, takes you into the burn building, or takes you into a real structure fire and says, hey, this is why you do this. This is why we care about disrupting the thermal barrier. You see in action, all of this is just head knowledge that's good for Jeopardy, for lack of a better term. It doesn't mean anything.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when I was going through fire school, when they were showing us all that, they were saying you got to look out for this. And it's like, if you have the chance, go over here, use your mechanical ventilation.
Yeah.
And that dissipates that smoke like bam.
You know how many times I've done that in a structure fire, and I'm looked at like I'm completely off my nut. But it's like, then like 2-3 minutes later, most of the smoke clears out, so we can actually see what the hell we're doing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I didn't know this. Like, yeah.
That's been around for how many years? Very long time.
Well, but it's like whenever you look in the firefighter training manual, whatever version we're up to, or edition 8 or 12 or whatever, it gets a paragraph of like hydraulic ventilation. This is how it works, but you don't really. And when we did in fire school, we didn't really truly smoke up the building. We were in the fire tower. There's no closing those windows. They mildly smoked it up, and they had some streamers so we could see flow paths.
Yeah.
But if you weren't standing there, it didn't really make any sense. And even then, all you know is you're just spraying water out window, and either a little O pattern, or a fan, or a fog pattern. But you don't actually see the smoke get ejected out, so it doesn't make any sense to you.
Right.
But no, one of the other things I'd say is like the knowing all the nuance of like, especially electric vehicles now, that's the big thing is being pushed. And at the end
Yes.
of the day, is like, I don't care whether it's an electric vehicle, whether regular vehicle fire, truck fire, CNG, it doesn't matter. You got to put the fire out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Employ different tactics and be willing, and you have to have the head knowledge to be able to say, okay, what I'm doing right now is not working. We need to do something else. Case in
Yeah.
point is that car fire we had a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Hey, we're in mud. Me pushing the fuel out from underneath the car is not doing anything because it's mud. I need foam.
Mm-hmm.
Let's change our tactic instead of wasting water.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good example. I'm sure you've seen it, those new fire blankets where they just take it and drape it up over the car and puts it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But what happens when it doesn't?
Yeah.
Look, like you said, electric vehicles, these lithium batteries pose a huge issue because they don't go out. Places refuse to tow them too because they're catching fire again. Yeah. They usually got to bury them in a 15-foot hole and douse them with water.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is who was I talking to? I was having this conversation when I was down in Fort Knox this last weekend. We were talking about electric vehicle fires, and they were asking me, like, what do we do about them? I was like, oh, you're just going to use a ton of water for us, as far as we're concerned. That, or at the end of the day, protect your exposures and let it burn, because there's nothing we're going to do it. And so they were talking about where they were from. It's called Colorado. One of those blankets for a 60-mile radius. Like, by that point in time, just let it go.
Yeah.
What are you saving anymore? Fire investigator ain't gonna be able to do nothing with that. If there's anybody in the vehicle, it's no longer survivable.
No.
And you're not gonna repair that vehicle. And honestly, most car fires don't get repaired anyway. They get junked.
Yep.
Because you can't do anything
Total
with
loss.
them. So, it's like at that point, it's like, okay, it's a really cool idea, and yeah, maybe the science works, but part of smothering the fire means is you have to be able to cover 100% of that and keep 100% of the oxygen from getting in. Lighting a fire, you can't do that.
No, not at all, man. They burn hot. They burn fast. I've thought about putting lithium batteries in my boat, but I'm like, I'm nervous about it. I don't want my boat to burn down.
Yeah.
But I've also never heard of somebody's lithium boat batteries catch fire either.
Well, then here's the other part of the head knowledge thing is that, so we see these reports. They always make CNN, they make ABC News, whatever. Bicycle batteries catching on fires in apartment buildings in New York City.
Those scooters.
Yeah, the scooters catching on fire. These EVs catching on fire and whatnot. And I can tell you from going to the Arson Expo last year, this was actually the whole thing they talked about, was electric vehicle fires and how it contributes to structure fires. And the two things they're finding is, number one, is that it's actually the wiring systems that they're being plugged into is not meant to take the voltages they have. So, you take a house, like my house was built in the 1890s. Okay, it's got a 100 amp service panel on it. And so now you put a 240 breaker in for that at whatever this 70 amps, which that's 70% of that service panel by itself. That's not meant to handle that kind of amperage for, in addition to everything else. So you start flipping on lights, you start flipping on other appliances. I mean, hell, all of your breakers in your kitchen are designed to pop at 1800 watts. I mean, that's already 120 volts at almost 20 amps right there, or 15 amps right there. I'm like, that's, I mean, it's you're going to burn stuff down.
Oh, absolutely.
Then the other thing they're finding is that it's not so much it's just the thermal runaway by yourselves. It's an insult of some sort. Damage from it, car accidents are a big one.
Yeah.
But, especially electric bicycles and stuff, you take them over rough terrain or you start bumping them over curbs and whatnot. Batteries aren't meant to be shocked like that.
Exactly. I was going to say, you're doing things with them they're not designed to be done with. Like my boat, my batteries are just regular flood gel batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 3 of them in there. I plug it in, but it's a trickle charger, so it's a slow charge.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. Like, it's not an instant charge, and they're only 12-volt batteries. It's not like I'm charging 100 batteries at one time.
Yeah. Well, but it's also taking that and knowing how to use it wisely and knowing how to think through that.
And you're discussing about having the right kind of breakers for these cars. yeah, they come and install these, but like you said, the rest of the power, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have to have a whole separate breaker,
Yeah.
bigger lines,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like some of these people are just taking shortcuts,
Yeah.
just putting it in and hooking it up.
Well, and then for the fire side, so we look at and we get tunnel vision and not too that we just assume that the thermal runaway has just started organically
Mm-hmm.
on these batteries, and then we're fighting thermal runaway. It's like, well, no, we're fighting all the other stuff too. And quite honestly, so let's just say you get a structure fire that started as a garage fire, attached garage fire. It was an electric vehicle. At the end of the day, you still got to put the structure out.
Yeah.
Whether that means you get a record there to haul that car out so it's no longer and just let it go and then handle the structure on its own separate merit or what, you still have to think through and then employ your head knowledge to put out the fire in the
Yeah.
house.
Absolutely. And it comes back to having blinders on.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take those blinders off and think outside of the box at times too.
Mm-hmm.
You got to use your knowledge. You know, from a very long time, everybody's told me knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And it is, but sometimes you think too much into the situation,
Yeah.
and you don't think about the basics or the simple stuff that can be done about it.
Yeah. Well, kind of like that. Like you said, knowledge of power and putting blinders on. I think that's the biggest thing I have against gadgets and whatnot is that, it's really cool stuff we have, but it does kind of put those blinders on because you get so stuck in that I have this specific tool that's supposed to make it easier.
Yep.
You kind of forget everything else exists out there.
Exactly. You're letting the machine do the thinking for you
Yes.
instead of doing what you've been trained and what you've been taught.
Yes.
And even using your senses at this point too. You know.
Yeah.
And you're relying heavily on this gadget.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we get lost into these state-of-the-art technologies, and sometimes they don't always work.
No.
And the best thing that can work is your knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, I think of this like even things we've used, pretty routinely, like thermal imaging cameras. Thermal imaging cameras are a great tool we have available to us for getting some pretty broad picture stuff. However, you should not be relying solely on the thermal imager to tell you the whole story. You have to be paying attention to what's going on around you. It's like, hey, thermal imager is saying it's only 400 degrees, but I'm feeling heat banking down on me here.
It's getting hot.
There's something else going on that I can't see. Whether fire's below me or fire's above me somewhere I can't see.
Exactly.
You have to break out of looking just at that little screen.
Yeah, and again, that's using going back to using your senses. You're seeing what's on the thermal, but you also you're sensing there's a heat change. It's getting hotter. Now there's more fire somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And just like hey, it's getting cooler. Okay, it's fire might be out. It's just going back to using your senses. It's still going to be hot in that room.
Yeah,
but you can feel the heat dissipate.
Yeah, or so you get into, and I see this a lot whenever, especially vehicle education. You see this where somebody learns like some high speed tactic that's supposed to like make it easier to pop a door, or it's gonna make making folding the dash easier, or whatever. Fill in the blank. It doesn't matter. And they're doing it, and then they're stumbling through it because, say, the vehicle that they practiced on, in whatever course it did, is a 4-door Toyota sedan that's, mid-90s model. But now they're trying to do that on, say, a Bronco or an Escalade or something like that, where it's like, okay, yeah, it's still got 4 doors. I mean, it's still got A, B, and C posts, but it's built completely differently than that Toyota Corolla that you practiced on. And then it's like, and they're fussing with it. And it's like, it's not that it doesn't work, but it's not going to work in this case.
Correct. Yeah, it's just, it may have, like you said, it may have worked in this situation. You got 2 different vehicles, years and years difference.
Yeah,
it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same. It's not the same on every vehicle.
Yeah,
just like you said, you brought out the Bronco. Look, Bronco's got soft tops. Jeep's got soft tops. There's your differences right there too. Yeah. And difference in the material that the bodies are made out of. The chassis are made of. There's something different. These newer vehicles, majority of them are all plastic.
Well, and then you start finding that, like, okay, so so it's not just like an abandoning of old tactics, but it's finding, okay, which one of those old tactics still work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so spread the door at the window to get purchase points so that you can pop the door at the nadir pin. That's still relevant, but maybe going for the quarter panel now that uses either polycarbonate or plexiglass or mild sheet steel.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be your first choice
Right.
in attacking anymore because it's no longer a structural component.
Right.
So you're still using some of the old stuff, but now you have to marry in new stuff to be effective.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Sometimes you have to mix the new with the old, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So again, things are gonna work, things aren't gonna work. Let's try both of them.
Mm-hmm.
May work out really well, and if it doesn't, okay, let's change it up. Let's do it how we used to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that what happens is we get two fronts. One, we get the younger guys like us, who's like, we want the new, cool, latest and greatest. We want all the things to make it easier for us. Which, okay, cool. I'm not against making the job easier because it's easier, can become safer, be more efficient. We go home all in one piece. But then the other side is we tend to throw out the baby with the bathwater, and then we throw out the bather with the baby with the bathwater. We throw it all out and say, well, none of it works. So it's like, well, that's not necessarily true either, because it's like elements of that still hold true regardless. Regardless of, like, for example, if we have a lightweight wood frame construction versus your legacy construction, your fireground tactics to fighting that fire are going to be largely the same. You're still putting water on the fire. You're still using your fire attack patterns. You're still doing interior attack. The only difference is that, hey, you're going to look at it as to what is savable versus what is not savable, and then where do we actually need to be employing our strategies at and how.
Exactly. And when you were bringing up about newer, greater tools, more sufficient, get us home safer. Look at the cutters and spreaders.
Yeah.
When I first started, it was all hydraulic. Had to bring out the generator, hook it all up.
Yeah.
Now you do open up the door, pull it out. It's all battery operated.
You remember when those first came out, because they're 10,000 psi things, but everyone looked at it and said those are battery powered. They're not going to be able to keep up with 5,000 psi systems.
Yeah.
The people like just poo pooed on the new battery systems.
Yeah. I think they're great.
Oh no,
I do.
Fantastic.
One, it cuts out a little bit of time. You don't have to pull them out, connect the hoses, pull the generator out. Hopefully it starts. You just pull it out, battery just charged, and you go to work.
Yeah, I remember like when we bought them here, that the idea was just like, well, you don't have actual hydraulic power behind them. You got this little motor battery thing that's just not going to cut. It's like they're rated for 10,000 pounds. Oh well, battery power tools are just bad. We're never going to battery power tools. And it's just like, so you're gonna say that we should stay in something that no longer works? These cutters and spreaders don't work on the boron infused rods that they put in these newer cars for strengthening them. So we should stick with those rather than updates.
Right.
What kind of sense
At
does that
some
make?
point in time, you have to update your tools and equipment
Yeah.
to meet the stuff that is being made today. Like there's no option. Sometimes you have to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and I think about too. So let's roll back the clock 60 years ago. So you got 500 gallon per minute pumps, 250 gallon per minute pumps, and we were all about how successful those were with 2-inch supply lines. Now here we are, 2024. 1,500 gallon per minute pumps, 5-inch supply lines, maybe 4-inch depending on where you're at. But like, and now we're thinking, wow, we can't even look back and figure out, how did you used to fight fire with 100 gallons per minute, 70 gallons per minute on a hose line? Like when some of the fires we have today, 150 gallons per minute doesn't seem to cut it half the time.
No, it doesn't.
And then you realize, like, how many of those guys sat there, folded their arms, and said, we will never go beyond our 1-inch hand lines. We will never use more than a 2.5-inch supply line. It's not necessary. You wonder, like, how many more of you got injured on the job, and how many more losses were you having because of that.
You know, funny story.
Mm-hmm.
When I was living down in Southern Ohio, one of the departments I was working for, old truck, like from old 22.
Yeah.
They had a truck like that.
Mm-hmm.
Their supply line was a 2.5 inch. Yeah. I'm like, what is this? And it's a fully involved structure fire. Like they're complaining, we're not getting enough water. Well, you have LDH on your truck and you're going up an incline. You got a heck of a lot of friction loss here.
You're not getting any water. 525 gallons per minute at 2.5 inch supply line,
and working 3 1 3/4.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're definitely exhausted.
Oh, absolutely. Because I brought up, it's like, you got LDH on the back of this truck. Why won't we use that? And I got scrutinized because I'm bringing stuff I've learned, especially here, to there, and they didn't like that. Yeah. And they couldn't figure out why they're not getting enough water. Well, ding, ding, ding. Here's your problem, and here's your solution. Yeah, and they don't want to do it.
Well, and it's and before I get accused of calling the pot the kettle black and all that, I'm not against. Okay, so you got limited manpower, and you need water now. You're going to be running 1 or 2 hand lines. Okay, yeah, drop that 2.5 inch supply line, get yourself rolling. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you either need to add another 2.5 inch hand line, which is still only going to get you about 1,100 gallons per minute. But hey, it's better than nothing. Or you need to transition over to an LDH. You can't, even a residential structure fire, you really can't supply your full operation on a 2.5 inch. Yeah, 2.5 inch supply line.
And like I said, we're going up a good at least 40-foot incline, and it's steep. Like I said, the friction loss in that, especially 2.5, is huge. You know, you got the means to fix the solution, but they're just relay pumping it from the 2.5. I'm like, where we're at, literally, there's no dry hydrants anywhere. So when they're going to refill, it's almost a 15-minute drive. Yeah. I'm like, at this point, you're in the middle of the woods. There's big enough surrounding. Once you're out of water, just let it burn until it gets more water back. Like, there's no saving anything in here.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, you get into this mode. It's like, oh, I saw these fire department. They were really high speed. They got on the ground. They put that 2.5 inch supply line. They put out a ruined contents fire, which is 2.5 inch supply line. Look, okay, yeah, but your booster tank should be able to handle, if you're an effective engine company, should be able to handle a ruined contents fire by itself. Honestly, it should be able to handle a pretty good sized structure fire by itself. But once you start getting into the the extended operations, you need to start thinking bigger water supply, especially if you're going to be there for more than an hour, 2 hours. You need more water. You're not going to sustain that on your 525 gallons per minute.
Oh, no way. No way. That's like pissing in the wind at that point.
Well, it's kind of like that pig barn fire we had last year. I know, that's just bringing up bad juju there. Gosh. But, we get there, the first new company, and they're pissing away their 1 3/4 line, which I got no issue pulling the 1 3/4 line. I mean, big fire, big water, but hey, you only got 2 guys in the truck. Okay, pull your 1 3/4, get something. Yeah. But then you're pissing it into the eaves of this barn, not really doing anything. And then you don't, and then when it comes to the supply, like you're trying just to, you want us just to use a single 2.5 inches supply. It's like, we're going to need a lot more. We're going to need a lot more water than just 2.5 inches at this point in time. And I think we definitely ended up with the LDH from the road up to our engine, which then we branched out to the, which side was it? It was the Delta Alpha corner, probably about another 200 feet off one direction. And then we ended up branching off to, I think, a grass fire truck on the Charlie side. So I'm doing mop up stuff. I mean, we were putting out a ton of water.
Yeah, and we had 2 drop tanks too.
Yes. So I mean, it's like, okay, cool. You want to nurse me with your 2.5 inch? That's fine. But that fire was not staying at 2.5 inch hose lines. That fire was quickly going much bigger water, much faster. We could supply
absolutely.
it. I'm actually kind of surprised we never ran out of water when it was all said and done.
Same. Yeah. I mean, we had a good little system going once we got everything fixed and going smoothly. It was just water. Well, like, look at me and you. We tried to go through that one door where they load the pigs in. Yeah, nope.
Well,
it got hot too.
It did. I was ready to go in, but that was also before we actually had full water supply established. Yeah. So that was probably probably isn't going to be a long-term good solution. But honestly, too, I mean, had they just gone and popped that door in the first place, because where he was shooting it up was on that soffit there. I mean, he's bouncing more off the wall than he was even the soffit.
Yeah.
And then the amount of the aggressiveness that fire spoke, even an 1.75 inch nozzle, I getting that much water up in there. It's like we really need to get in there, but
yeah, because I remember we were discussing as we were getting ready to pull up. I was like, I'm gonna pull the 2.5 off the back, and you're like, good, let's get it. And then we pull it up, and it kind of just changed everything.
Yeah, yeah. No, but but we also did. That was one of those fires where we started employing all kinds of stuff because I remember we're trying to figure out how we could water under fire after the whole thing collapsed.
Yeah,
and some dumbass, I don't remember who it was, said, "Hey, go get the cutters and spreaders and go get me all the cribbing off 13." It's like
we lifted the roof.
It's like we lifted that roof. We used all the cribbing I think that we had in the truck, but we were able to hit those hot spots underneath that after it collapsed,
and it worked.
Yeah,
that comes thinking outside of the box right there. It's a great example of that. Some people may not have thought about using that.
Some people were thinking like, "You're off your nut."
Hey,
what
but
are you doing?
What? It worked.
Yeah,
and it worked well too. Especially like I said, after it collapsed down and the backhoe wasn't there yet.
Yeah,
it was. We're just cooling the roof down at this point. As soon as we got it lifted up, it would shoot it up underneath of it.
Yeah. No, and in all honesty, too, I mean, that a lot of experience went into that fire. Is what saved it, because there was a little midsection there. It was a small office, probably honestly about the size of our station, or was our base. That was where they had like all the all the antibiotics and
all the pig semen.
Yeah.
Wow.
And down the other side was a barn that was just as big as the one that lit off.
That we saved in it.
Yeah, that we saved. So I mean, whatever we put on that fire, like we did something right, because
I think we used like 60,000 gallons.
Yeah, like what was also done. It wasn't as much as you would think for that kind of fire.
Yeah,
but we put a stop to it, and we, But again, it was a lot of outside the box thinking. It was a lot of, especially for a rural department, having different sectors of command.
Yeah,
doing things. Hey, you're using a grass fire on a structure fire to help operations. Well,
yeah, because I was in the back and I got assigned to that one at some point too.
Yeah,
and it worked.
Yeah,
especially after the one department ran out of water. We still have water in the tank. Hey, let's go over here. Let's hit some of it while we can. You know, they're little flare ups. It worked.
That's one of those things where I think grass fire trucks fall into this category where they are a great tool, great gadget for a very specific job, brushing grass fires, but they do actually have merit in other operations too. Yeah, you're not going to fight by themselves a full structure fire or anything like that, but you get a fire like that, pig barn fire, where it's like, hey, we need an extra truck back there. We don't have enough room for a fire truck because there's no road for us to drive back there.
Oh yeah, you'll sink them.
We need water.
Yeah.
Hey, that pump we have on ours will put out 250 gallons per minute. That's enough for an 1.75 inch hose line or two.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Put in the work. Put in the work.
Yeah.
Run the 2.5 of them and put in the work. But again, you get in this mode of like, oh, grass fire trucks are only for grass fires. Like,
not always.
No,
you got to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
You got to use your knowledge. It all comes back to that. You got to think.
Yes.
If we would have took any of those engines back in there, we would have never gotten out.
No.
We would be having a tractor or a heavy wrecker pull those trucks out of there, especially in the field, because that was just tilled.
Yeah.
And it was so soft.
Yeah. Well, and I've gotten in arguments with farmers over why we won't take a $500,000 piece of fire apparatus into their field. And they're like, oh, we used to do that 20 years ago. I don't know what you have a big... Yeah, and 20 years ago, you shouldn't have done it then either, but you did.
Absolutely.
But it's like we can fight fire better. We can fight it more intelligently now. We're not going to be just pigeonholed into doing one thing because it's the only thing we've done.
Right. Because it was a long time ago. I remember we got our grass truck stuck in a farmer's field.
Was that when they dented the
that back bumper?
We were talking about that the other week, actually.
Yep. Yeah, because I remember coming back in, I'm like, what the heck happened? Like, oh, well, we got it stuck in a farmer's field. And they pulled us out,
Mm.
and we hit the tractor.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
But I'd rather have that than a $500,000 fire truck.
Yes. Yes. Those are things too that like sometimes that's the only thing you can get back to. When we had that combine fire a couple years ago, I actually think it was last year. No, it's been a couple years because what's his name from Jackson Fire was still here. Um, we I wish we had the foresight to say, hey, let's roll the grass fire truck first and then the engine because it ended up being almost a half mile off the road when it was all said and done. And so we, maybe not, no, not half mile, 800 feet. So what does that come up to? A quarter mile, eighth of a mile.
Just about, yeah.
It was a long, regardless, it was a long freaking way to haul a ton of hose. And we did it, but a better use would have been a grass fire truck to go out there and
it's like after you've done it and like, oh man, in hindsight, we should have done this.
Yeah.
But now for next time too. And if you got enough people, hey, just bring the engine and the grass truck.
Yeah.
Especially if it's that far off the road, there's no way you're pulling an engine back through there.
Yeah. No, I think that's then where you need to take like, okay, so we have the tools. And you shouldn't look at something like, oh, hey, we had the tool that was supposed to work for us and it didn't. Ask yourself, okay, what would have worked better? Or what, was this the tool for the job
to
do that?
Exactly.
I think an extra example of this is probably your pike pulls versus your New York hooks. Because New York hooks are all the rage now in fire trucks and fire apparatus. Like when they're specking them in, they want to spec in New York hooks versus the pike pulls and whatnot. And okay, that's cool. That's fine. But I mean, they all have different merits and different purposes. New York hooks are great for pulling ceiling. New York hooks are great for pulling off your drywall. But should we give her a shout out?
We should.
Come back, Casey.
Yeah.
Come back.
Open the door.
Come back. She's ignoring us.
Say hi, Casey.
This is what you get for doing stuff on the location. But no, it's like they have their merit. And in many ways, I will say they probably are superior in a lot of ways. But then too, also, I can't help but think that part of the reason like pike pulls end up not being as useful is because with New York hook, you've got it's usually a steel rod. The steel pull is all forged. Pike pull, at least the ones I've dealt with, are fiberglass pulls, which are like 2 inches wide, which then eats up like a third of your actual hook's ability to grab on stuff. Which then, I mean, have we just over-engineered it? They're just trying to expect the pike pulls to do something that they're not good at.
I mean, I have an antique pike pole at home. It's probably about an inch in diameter.
Yeah.
All wood. I'm like, that's old.
Yeah.
I wish it was the full length, but it was cut. But still, it just shows you where they've came from since then.
Yeah.
Starting off with wood, now you got fiberglass, you got your steel.
Well, one thing I will say, and I wish they would do this more with New York hooks, is that pike poles had a nice spike. Used to have a good 1.5-inch spike on the, so they could punch through plaster. You rotate them a quarter turn or half turn, and then pull, and that's how they're supposed to be used.
Yep.
You know how many people I see, first of all, in this stuff, like with New York hooks, and they're struggling to punch through lath and plaster because it's just a blunt tip on the end. There's no like real striking force, especially once you get 8 feet above your head. But then also too, like, and this is for both of them, they go up and then they go up, punch through, and they pull down. Nothing comes down.
Yep.
Because
it didn't turn them.
You got to turn it. It's meant to be turned and then pulled.
Yeah.
And then you say, oh, it didn't work. Yeah, because you're not using it right in the first place.
Exactly. A couple years ago, one of the fires I was at, I forget what department I was in there with, but anyway, they were doing that. They were taking the pipe pole. We had high ceilings, and they're just shoving it up.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, it might help you turn a little bit. Put it up there, turn it. Next thing you know, the ceiling just fell down on all top of us. Imagine that. You turn it, use it correctly, it works. It was unfortunate. Ceiling fell on us, but there's a lot of water up there.
Well, it's what's funny is that so when you look at the newer hook, because it's got once you punch through on either side, it's got a hook, so it kind of negates the need to turn it now. Although you should, because you get twice as much pulling power on it. But now, if you push it up and it falls forward, either way you get a hook. Okay, so we fixed a problem, quote unquote, but we fixed it for people who just don't think of how the tool is meant to be used.
Yeah, it's like they've dumbed it down.
Yeah.
You know, when I went through fire school, like we barely went over New York hooks. It was always pike poles.
Yeah.
That's all it was. You know, and then coming here, and it's like, oh, this is in New York. I'm like, I really never used it because all they taught us was pike pole, pike pole, pike pole. That's it. That or your halogen and your axe.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So that was somewhat new to me when I started here.
Yeah. No, another thing I can think of is, and this is in my force plunger thing too, is stop using the Halligan as a hammer. The Halligan was not designed to be used as a hammer. It's a prying device only. It's not a hammer. It's not a swinging implement. But yet we do that. And then you see companies who they make a bigger head on the ad side of the Halligan for striking and whatnot. And for swing, it's like, no, it's not meant to be a hammer. Stop using it as a hammer. Use it for what it's designed for. And all of a sudden you're going to find that your force plunger goes a lot smoother than if you're trying to,
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody use it as a hammer yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did one day. But like you said, it's not designed to be used as a hammer. It is a prying tool.
The way I see it used as a hammer is in one of two cases. Either A, somebody has a wedge and they're trying to use it to, like they're either taking like this and pounding it straight down the shaft of the Halligan, or this one really cracks me up. You have a wedge and you have an axe. And instead of using the wedge and the axe, you're taking the axe, you're putting the blade in the door, and then you're taking the Halligan and beating on the back of the axe. It's like this is 100% backwards for what this is supposed to be.
Dear God.
It's like, but you know, but here's the thing though, is that this is where we get this like trick, this head knowledge thing, where it's like I saw it on TikTok or I saw it as a YouTube short or whatever, and it's like, and it magically worked. So now we got all these young firefighters out there beating the crap out of axe heads. We can't figure out why the backs are all flared out.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't get why force punch is just hard. I don't get it. I'm not good at it. It's like, yeah, no kidding, because you're not doing it right.
Right. And you know, you bring up something too. Like I see all these videos of these guys kicking doors in. Not always that easy.
No.
Like you have the tools. Use them. So it's like you can stand there and kick a door for 5 minutes. You got to axe and Halligan or see if it's unlocked.
I'm not gonna lie. One of the so we had structural fire always here. I think I actually talked about this. It's the exact same story too. I won't share any names, but we guy went to try to mule kick the door, and you just hear boom, 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 and the battalion of the neighborhood department is like, hey, let me show you something. And taught him like he had never learned how to do forcible entry on the fire scene.
Oh my goodness.
There, which is embarrassing to begin with, was like, dude, that he had the Halligan axe right there. Why were you trying to mule kick the door anyway?
I feel like people that do that just want to do it to feel like a badass.
Yeah. Well, because the one time it works, you do feel pretty like, oh man, I'm pretty awesome.
But then now you risk of injuring your foot. Me breaking something or tearing something. I'd rather not.
Yeah.
I'd rather just use the simple tools. A couple hits, bam, you're in.
Well, and the problem is that so you do that. So let's just say that you try to mule kick a door and you have now kicked your way through the bottom of that door. You're no closer to forcing the door, but now you've affected the structural integrity of the door. You've now made your job harder when you go to do it properly, trying to get through a door. Yeah. Versus if you had just done it right in the first place, or just taken your time with it in the first place, it wouldn't have been such a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, when I was living down in Southern Ohio, we had a structure fire. Guy grabbed an axe Halligan, couldn't get the door open. Tools are sitting right next to him. What does he do? He picks up a brick.
Oh.
And it's one of those fancy doors, got the big oval glass in the middle. Threw it. And what did it do? Bounced right off. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, and then I found out this kid, he just got his fire card the day before. And I'm like, this is very fresh in your mind. You should know what to be doing.
It's just like, what do you...
I'm like, a brick.
We come on and we look like hoodlums when we do that. Because it's like, what? Like, who goes up there? Like I'm trying to imagine. I'm trying to imagine another tradesman who comes up and like wants to go fix something, and their very first idea is everything's a nail, so they just take a hammer and start beating on it. It's like I don't know. I can't even think. I guess it'd be like a fine woodworker pulls out a chainsaw to rip a board, and it's just completely mangling up this board. Looks like looks good enough, and it's like, what are you thinking? What do you think if somebody sees you doing that and you say you're a fine craftsman? They're gonna look at you like you're an idiot,
right? And the chief for that department watched him do that and didn't say anything to him until I did. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what made you think throwing a brick was gonna be okay?
What made you think
tools are right here?
That was your first option? You said you had the tools. That was your first option? Seriously?
I'm like, I wish you could have been there to see that one.
You know what though?
Oh my God.
Again, we watch way too much Chicago Fire. We watch way too much. Yeah. What's a Lone Star FD or whatever it is.
Lone Star 911 and that stuff.
And we see these guys who do stupid stuff. They're going into structure fires, no masks on, and coming to the door. Magically, the rest of the house doesn't have any smoke in it, but they're like, "Oh, we better mask up. This is gonna be bad." It's like if we pick up that, we're like, "Oh man, I want to look like that." Or all my friends and family, they think that's what I do. I don't want to disappoint. It's like, you gotta do a little bit more than just be a superstar.
Oh, you got to use your head. You do. You've been taught all this knowledge, and you want to do stupid stuff because you might have seen it on YouTube or TikTok or on TV. Like, that stuff is made for TV, not for the real world.
Well, this on the other side of that. So, doing some of the advanced fire training we do, one of the instructors and I got in an argument last year over this, because when people think of limited manpower apparatus, most people think, oh, you have a ladder truck that's supposed to have 6 on it and you have 4, or you have an engine that's supposed to have 4 on it, you have 3. Okay, how about we take that number and divvy it down another 50%? How about we say, hey, your engine company normally has 4 or 5 people on it, not only has 2 on it, and your ladder truck company, the number has 6 on it, has 3 on it. Now we come talk about, limited manpower. And this is where it's like, okay, I know all the school stuff that you do. One person is on the nozzle, one person backing up the nozzle, and then one person is humping hose inside the structure, and one person outside the structure humping hose. Like, that's great when you have 4 people off your engine to do that, including another engine who's able to do other operations. But when you got on scene, it's only 2 or 3 of you. Like, all of a sudden that changes, and now you start doing stuff that maybe is not in the book, but it's what you have to do to get by.
Yeah.
You shouldn't grab a bite of hose line and put a kink in it to haul it into the house. But when it's only you and yourself and one other person with you, I'm going to grab the extra 25, 30 feet of hose line, haul it in with me. Once it goes tight, drop it, and then pull the rest of the way I need to, because that's what's going to get me inside the house.
Exactly. You got to, oh man, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. You got to accommodate for your situation. Adapt. Yes. Thank you. You got to adapt to the situation that you're given. Yeah. Especially with limited manpower. You might have to do that.
Yeah. When that also means too, is you break out of training on all the hyper specific stuff, or the things that come easiest, or the tips and tricks and whatnot. Sometimes you got to pull guys away from saying, okay, hey, we know we've been doing company operations with 2 engine companies with 4 people each. Hey, we're going to take 4 of you out of that equation. Now go. I want you to figure out how to do everything you're going to do in your first 7 minutes of a fire with half your personnel. and it's gonna be rickety and cluster,
Yeah.
but you get good at what get good at your job.
Yeah, especially when you're being put in a situation you're not going to be put into, but there might be a possibility it's going to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people you never say never because it might happen at one point.
20 years ago, 25 years ago, if you had told any major metropolitan department that in 2020 to 2024, you're going to see the greatest drop in firefighters that you have ever seen historically, and that you will be running most of your houses at about 70% manpower staffing, they will have looked at you and said, absolutely not. There is a paramedic and firefighter in every single corner looking for a job. That will never happen. And here we are. Here
Hmm.
we are, 2024. Most departments, if they're running at 70% of their staffing, they're lucky. Some are
Hmm.
running 50%
Yeah.
of their staffing that they should be. You know, you're running guys who are exhausted running 15, 18 calls a shift,
Yeah.
fire calls. And and then you're wondering, it's like, why are we having the degradation of this? Like, well, because you're expecting these guys to think outside the box when they have spent their entire careers thinking of things very linearly and very, very straightforward.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, they would have laughed at you in the face. Said that will never happen.
Hmm.
Yeah, here we are. Some of these departments are struggling big time
Yeah.
to have a minimum staffing.
Hmm.
You know, and they get that minimum staffing. It's like a relief to a lot of them,
Yeah.
but they're still struggling, but not as bad as they were.
Yeah. Well, but then you're taking all that and say, okay, well, what we did 20 years ago, let's do it exactly that way now. It's like, you can't. You have to
Mm-mm.
take what you've learned in the last 20 years and actually apply it.
Yeah,
Not be as scared of the knowledge and the experience you have, but learn from it and grow from it.
yeah. You can't be stuck in the old ways.
No.
I mean, does a lot of the old stuff work?
Hmm.
Absolutely. But it's a new day and age.
Yeah.
Things are different than they were even 15 years ago. Things constantly change.
What kills me is that so we've seen the advent, and it's by no means a brand new thing, but it's newish. Is the advent of your piercing nozzles and cellular nozzles as like a normal piece of kit for fire trucks. And unfortunately, I have yet to see them actually used on a basement fire yet.
Same.
Like we get so used to barreling the front door and find those basement steps wherever the hell they might be. And but it's like, hey, we have the cellar nozzle. We know we have a basement fire. Pop a hole in that floor
Yeah.
and put the water down there.
Yeah. Man, I forget what fire it was on, but I recommended using it.
Mhm.
I got told no.
Yeah.
I'm like, it would work perfect,
Yeah.
but I got told
Yeah.
no.
No, it's one of our guys on a basement fire we had a couple years ago. He popped out the glass block of the basement, saw it was a basement fire, and then immediately took that nozzle and just put it down,
Mhm.
in there on the narrow fog, and just started soaking it down there. I mean, and that's probably what prevented it from actually getting worse, because it turned out it was from a gas line
Ooh.
that was on. There's some other things to that. I'm not gonna go into it, but I mean, but that was the tactical decision to be
Yeah.
made, because the other option was, hey, we're gonna go in the front door over top of fire we don't even know was there.
Mhm.
We know how that ends, unfortunately, most
Yeah.
times. So, but it's like you have to change your tactics, but realize that, hey, fast water on a fire still wins. It's
It does.
like, if you find where the fire is, don't waste time. Don't waste time like saying, "Oh, well, we're gonna go through the front door still because Hey, you got a Division 1 fire in the corner, and you see it. You got your hose line right there. Yeah, start hitting it from the outside.
Mhm.
You're only going to improve conditions in that structure."
Exactly. And again, some people get them blinders. Like, no, we have to go inside to fight the fire.
Yeah.
You can fight fire from the
Mhm.
outside too. That doesn't change. And like you said, it can potentially improve the conditions inside for the crew that's going to go in
Yeah.
to that room.
Well, in any case, and I remember this in any entrance exam question where they talk about modern firefighting tactics. The question always reads something like, "What is the number one thing that increases survivability and improves conditions in the structure?" and there's water on the fire every single time. And it's funny that we forget that because we'll go past like where we see, like, so let's just say you on the outside side of a structure, you got your door in the center, living room's on fire. It's already blowing out the living room window, but we're still gonna go. We're not gonna put water. We're gonna go beating on the door to get in, and then go fight the fire inside. It's like, hey, big bay window there. Hey, while we're working on this, start putting water on that fire. You'll probably have 2/3 of it mopped up before we even make entry. You're gonna be pulling secondary line anyways. So cool. Secondary line goes in first. Then take your the lines next to you. That becomes your backup line.
Exactly.
It's too easy, but
and it is. But people get the blinders again. It's the blinders. I keep going back to it, but that's what happens. If they see one problem and they just say they don't see the whole picture, they're like, nope. Inside we go. Forget about this. But like you said, you got a giant bay window.
Yeah.
Let's hit it. It's coming out the window. Let's do it now.
Yeah, I remember when we went down to Wayne County's fire center. We pissed off the instructors the first scenario we went into because it was supposed to be a kitchen fire, and we went in there, went to work, knocked out the fire. We put the fire out. It's propane fire, but we put the fire out. We go out like, oh, you guys aren't done yet. I'm like, fuck, we are. It's fire's out.
Right.
Fire's out. Not my fault. You guys didn't have enough propane there to keep it going.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, we're gonna relight. You guys go back and no, we went in, went to work. You didn't expect it. Fire's done. We're going out. Overhaul can start now. We don't need to be playing games.
Ventilation. Yeah. Again, we have all these tools. Tools that's been around for centuries.
Yep.
And we got the new stuff, new state of the art stuff. The new stuff, it has its times and its place.
Yeah.
But I feel still the older tools, they still work. And again, that's why we've had them for hundreds of years.
Yeah. The reason why they keep on coming back into circulation, no matter how much we try to replace them, like it's like trying to think of okay, so like how many times have we seen like to try to marry like the fourth end of a Halligan with a sledgehammer with a flathead axe that was a TNT tool and whatnot. We got the best of both of all three worlds. We got a sledgehammer on one side, we got axe head on the other side, and we got the forks of Halligan on the other side. You can pry, you can strike, you can cut. It's like you can do it all. It's like that's great, cool. I still need another tool to go with it because by itself, like I can't drive
the
forks of the TNT tool with the TNT tool. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And then if you know anything about like your actual force vectors when it comes to your Halligan tool, that using your adds is what gives you your 15-to-1 mechanical advantage when it comes to forcing a door. I can't do that with the TNT tool. I only get the 6-to-1 or 5-to-1 with the forks. So it's a less effective tool.
Yeah.
It doesn't even take the best part of the Halligan tool to use it. And why? I just ask why, except that it looks cool.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember when they came out with the pig?
Yes. One of the guys I worked with, he has a love affair with that thing. It follows him to every single apparatus he is on.
Yep. Guy here years ago had one, and same thing, carried it with him everywhere. It wasn't nice. Absolutely, it was. It was heavy.
Yeah,
it was heavier than the axe and Halligan combined. I'm like, I don't want to go in with all this weight.
No. Well, but then you also start thinking about it's not even a good striking tool because here's the thing: if you're holding the Halligan like this, you get that big old spike on the end of the striking end of the pig. Don't want you swinging that by me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be impaled.
Exactly. And the thing's massive. And it's got some head weight to it.
No, if you had to go through a cinder block wall, that's the tool to use. That spike is going to do wonders. You gotta go through a glass block. Yeah, that spike will do awesome things to that glass block. But outside of that, it doesn't really live up to what everyone says it will.
Because I thought about buying one years ago. I'm like, that's too heavy for me.
Yeah.
Nope, it's too heavy, too bulky, I'll just take what's right there on the truck if I'm right next to it.
It's been in circulation, as you said, for decades now.
About 15 years.
Well, I mean, like I was referring like the irons, the Halligan axe.
And
decades.
Long.
Reason why we've used it since the 50s or 60s, whenever it was made by Hugh Halligan. There's a reason why we kept it with honestly very minimal changes.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's an effective but simple tool.
Yeah. But but then it's also a tool you have to pair with the knowledge of how to use the tool, not just saying that, oh, this tool will solve all my problems.
Exactly.
I've seen Halligan bars that have just messed people up trying to use them. You ever really want to mess with somebody? Take someone who's fresh out of the fire academy, where you've always done like full engine crew 4-on-4 operations, and say, okay, hey, here's your Halligan, here's your flathead axe, go force that door by yourself. You want to see someone just like lose their mind. That's a real good way, because they're like, I need someone else to do it. Nope, you're doing one. No, it's a 2-person job. No, it's not.
Not today. It's not.
Not today.
You're it.
Mm-hmm.
That's that.
Yeah, it's the same thing as throwing a 24-foot extension ladder. I remember we had a guy who, I mean, he worked here and also worked part-time with me down south too. But when I broke it to him, it's like, hey, have you ever thrown the 24-foot extension ladder by yourself? Well, no. I mean, we've always done it 2 people. Guess what? You're going to learn today.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to learn today. We're going to practice this until you are effective throwing that ladder. It's by yourself, at least to a 2nd-story window, because I can't be there to help you every single time.
Yeah.
And I
think it was maybe 2 years ago we did something like that here. That was the first time I did a 24-foot by myself.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, not used to this. Used to 2 people.
Yeah.
Do it by yourself. It gives you different perspective.
Yeah.
On everything. Like, this could be you one day. And it's like, it's nice to know exactly how you should do it. So it's never say never.
No. But then also too, it's the do you have the knowledge of when to do that? So, because I will never tell somebody, hey, if it's a 2-person, is it safer to do as a 2-person or 3-person? Yeah, hey, do it as a 2 or 3-person. I'm not saying that we should be doing engine operations with 2 people. I'm not saying you should be doing search and rescue with only 2 people. But know all the steps and all the rules you need to do with 2 people as well as with 4 people. Because, I mean, that's what's going to make you effective as a firefighter. Not.
Oh, absolutely.
I think kind of closes out is on the EMS side, because we've been talking a lot about the fire side, is one of the best bits of advice I've ever received from a medic, much, much older than me. God rest his soul. He's gone now. But one of the best bits of advice I ever got was when he asked me when I was doing my clinical time, so you're going to start an IV? Yeah. Why? And it kind of threw me back. I'm like, what IV O2 monitor? What do you mean why? It's like, no. What do you project in the next 10 minutes of your transport that you're going to possibly need the IV for? And if you can answer that question, knock yourself out. And he said that goes for anything you're going to do. If you're just doing it because either protocol says do it, or you're just doing it because you can do it, maybe you need to do something else. Because
that's actually pretty good.
Yeah. And well, it gave me pause, because he said everything you do, you're going to be held accountable for at some point. So you need to be able to justify why. And if you're just starting IVs, some people just start IVs. We think of them as pretty innocuous things that we do, but they do carry quite a risk of infection.
Yeah.
And there's some where I've like really scrubbing their arms. We had a guy who came from a meat processing plant. Like I went to start IV on him. I really scrubbed up his arm.
Yeah. Like when I was in medical school doing clinicals, there was a few times I've opened 3 or 4 different alcohol wipes and really scrubbed their arm because they're dirty. And I'm like, I don't want this to come back on me.
Yeah. No. So, but you ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? All of a sudden it opens you up to really thinking through your treatments.
Yeah.
This is where I have like started asking myself, what are truly the best treatments to do for patients whenever I get them? Okay. Like, like what kind of bleeding control do I really need to do? Do I need 2 people in the back, or do I need 3 people in the back with me? And hey, am I going to poke and prod and try to start an IV on this? Or is this something that can wait till we get to the hospital? I'm not buying it. And That kind of head knowledge just makes you better because you learn that you can slow down and think through things a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
calmly and clearly. You know, you realize like when you come up on the major trauma and you say, okay, hold on, time out. We have brain matter exposed. They've been down for 15 minutes. You know, they got run over by a car, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or they fell from a third story window. We're doing everything we can. Hold on. Let's look at this from the whole picture. You start realizing that you can slow things down just a little bit and think rationally versus just barreling and throwing
Right.
everything at the
Exactly.
wall. Which goes along with what we're being taught now, because the latest thing we're being taught is, hey, your first 10 or 15 minutes on scene versus cardiac arrest, you're stay in play.
Mm-hmm.
Do all your cardiac arrest stuff. Don't throw them in the back of the ambulance just because that's what we've done for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
You're going to give epi at the hospital. You're going to give amio in the hospital or lidocaine, whichever your flavor is. They're going to, they're going to defibrillate. You can do all that stuff on scene. And if you don't get ROSC in your first 15 minutes, you're not going to get ROSC.
Yeah, and the chances of them coming back are slim.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just, you start thinking that through. And then you start thinking through other things like, okay, let's fix all the other stuff we can. Now we've actually can go into our H's and T's and fix our H's and T's. And then we can say with confidence, okay, we've done everything we can. We're at 20 minutes here. Is there anything else we can think of?
Right.
We're still in asystole. Okay. Let's call for a pronouncement. We've gone through everything. But now instead of thinking like, okay, maybe I could have thought something else afterwards, you slow down. You're like, okay, I've thought of everything. We've gone through every step. Now we can do things with confidence versus just hoping something works.
Yep.
Which honestly, I think that's actually where this all comes to, is that when we just kind of throw every tool and trick in the book at something, we're just hoping something sticks. Like some little thing we saw on TikTok or whatever, just hoping something works and it can work every time. And at some point you have to realize you got to think through it, because not everything's going to work.
No, it's not.
Stick.
You've hit some good points talking about that, especially, with the full rest. Like, I hear a lot of departments in the county, they just load and go.
Yeah.
And you're coming down from the south end of the county where it's hilly, windy, bumpy. What are you really doing?
Yeah.
Are you really helping your patient?
How good are you if you're doing manual compression? Even if you're doing automatic compressions, how good are those compressions going?
Exactly. And always maybe adjusting the patient because they're slipping out of the device.
Yeah.
It baffles me coming from here and then hearing what these other departments do. I'm like, why? If you got ROSC, go. Now you can load and go.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also comes down to why do we do the things that we do? And I know that scares a lot of people. Is that if you've just been told, hey, do this, no real explanation behind why, but do this because we know somewhere it works or worked. Yeah, when somebody puts you on the spot, it's like, well, should we stay or should we go? And you're like, oh no, throw him in, let's go. Don't waste any time. It's more so because it's like you're afraid of being exposed. You don't, if it goes wrong, you won't be able to say why it went wrong.
Right.
Versus saying like, hey, I can get away from it and I can say we did everything we could because we did at 60 miles an hour bouncing down the road, which I've never had to go experience. I'm very picky more now about who and when I go license sirens to the hospital, because I have, even whenever I say, hey, give me a gentle code 3, don't toss me, I still end up tossed like a potato salad in the back. Like it's nonsense, because that adrenaline starts pumping and fly like a rocket.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you get new people that rarely drove code 3 and their adrenaline's really, really going. And like, I need to get there like yesterday.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's very selective on going code 3. Like my full-time job, the hospital may request it, we're only 7 minutes from the hospital. Yeah. We don't do it unless it's something major.
Well, and that's the thing, because I remember when I worked private ambulance and the hospital requests code 3 to respond to it. Now, unless I'm going to BFE to like basically a Band-Aid station out in the middle of the county. Like if I'm going to a major hospital and they're going up to another major hospital, with all due respect, why are you asking for code 3? You are a hospital. Mm-hmm. You are supposed to stabilize them. If they are not stable enough for you right now, you're about to put them back in my ambulance. Do you think they're magically going to get stable?
Right.
It's like
we used to drive from our station all the way out to a freestanding ER for code 3s.
Yeah.
It's a 40-minute drive for us.
Yeah.
I ain't driving code 3, especially on the highway, and you can do highway speeds.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get off the highway, then you can light it up. But it's so close from the ramp to the hospital, there's no use of doing that.
Yeah. Well, that gets dangerous too, especially. That's gonna be us next. All right. Well, that turned out to be a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, we got anything else really to add now that our entire trains of thought have just been completely derailed?
You literally derailed.
Gone into a tunnel. Everyone died. Smoking, fiery ruin.
Yeah. I got nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this we've kind of beat this dead horse. I guess the only thing I would say is like, learn stuff. Learn as many different ways to do stuff as you can, but don't get so hung up on the knowledge you forget like actual application of it.
Yeah, don't forget the basics.
Yeah, because if you learn stuff like school had background knowledge, but if you don't know how to actually like apply any of that background knowledge, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we might still end up getting called to this if they.
Yeah.
We'll
just sit here and wait.
We'll see. But on that note, we're gonna sit here and listen to this and wonder what's gonna be happening and not gonna be happening. So
yeah.
I think we're just gonna close this out before the world falls apart.
Let's do it.
So, all normal things. I still haven't figured out our Spotify thing, but still working through that. I'm telling you, it's gotta be a terms and conditions thing.
It's something
they got, But we're still on YouTube. Still posting TikTok. Well, whatever's going on with that, I don't.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Will see what happens with that. So, but we'll be out there. I'm sure at some point, if we haven't gained much traction, we'll start gaining traction regardless. I haven't thought on that though. I've heard it takes anywhere from 12 to 15 months to actually really start.
I'm not surprised.
No, it's a very oversaturated platform as it is. So,
True.
But yeah, until next time, I've been Tim.
I'm Jeremiah.
And this has been Coffee Table edition of Conflict of Leadership, and we will see you next time.